Alright, no one's expiring this week. That's good. And it could be worthwhile to get to Jesse events. Oh, Marriott we've only had one event for. I kind of feel bad. The issue with going for a Marriott event is we're basically stuck with, like, we only have belief at that point to raise. So I think maybe you go for Jesse, just because that's the most stats being utilized, really. Knowledge, sympathy, and grace. That gives us the opportunity for a more well-rounded next week, I think. And then we'll probably do Marriott next week. No rush on Lavina. I mean, the fact that we're reaching it, like, you can't do this until this week, sort of gate on her, means that we are not even close to having any of her events expire, I imagine. Jesse, though, we've been close a couple times. Yeah, so we'll go with... I do wonder if it's, like, even possible to get all the events in a single run. Like, I imagine it's probably not. Though it is possible that maybe the because they did say at the beginning, like, oh, you should probably focus, like, 2 or 3 people. But I do wonder how much of that is the expectation of, you know, maybe we'll just have to skip a few weekends because you didn't get the stats you need. Which I don't think we're really having to worry about that, at least not right now. And Marriott is not expiring this week, so there's no particular rush, and we already have all the belief we need, so if, like, next week it's like, oh, Marriott's expiring, then we can do it then. So we'll go with Jesse first for stat optimization purposes. Sarah, I was wondering, what do you do with a pirate? With a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor? I mean, you got here via boat, right? Or, sorry. What do you do when you are at tea with Miss Minchin and those people? Does she have you recite the party piece, or dance, or pose? Or are there men present? Not commonly, and only if their wives are in attendance. I do not think so many men would care for tea with a schoolmistress. I've never been asked to dance or recite. Sometimes she asks me about my lessons and if I like the classes and other people's, which I always say that I do. Sometimes I ask me about books that I have read, which I don't mind. Then Miss Minchin says how clever I am, which makes me uncomfortable. Often Miss Minchin wishes me to converse in French with the lady. They aren't usually French women themselves, but they see the language as a charming accomplishment. All of a sudden, Jesse's tone sharpened. Do they actually converse with you as a person, or only as Miss Minchin's pretty toy? Do they ever call on you instead of Miss Minchin? Do you ever see them again? Sarah blinked rapidly. Oh no, Sarah, blink twice if you're being held hostage here. I don't understand. Doesn't it make you angry being used like a trinket for Minchin to display? Like an advertisement for her school? Despite the fact that most of what your achievements are wholly your own, and your cleverness is just your natural talent and not anything that Miss Minchin has particularly, nourished necessarily. She's not even a very good school headmistress. And your French, which is apparently your most impressive accomplishment according to the high society out there, was something you learned all on your own well before you even came here. Like, I'm just saying, she's using you and she's stealing your glory that she does not deserve for herself. There doesn't seem to be any reason for me to be angry. Having tea with visitors is not such a difficult thing. It's like a kind of performance with attention instead of applause. A performance? I never thought that tea and books and French could be like being on a stage. Jessie spun in place, letting her skirt catch the air, then sank in a formal curtsy. It was a beautiful position, with her back perfectly straight and the fabric of her dress spread neatly around her. Oui, oui, merci, madame. Please pour again. Not quite like that. Jessie straightened, patting her skirt down to ensure that every ruffle was in place. Will you speak French to me, Sarah? I hardly know what to say when you ask it like that. Say something pleasant. Say that it is a beautiful day, or that your breakfast was delicious, that I am clever and charming. Vous êtes un filet charmant, mais je ne vous comprends pas toujours. Jessie smiled, although Sarah was not sure if she had understood the entire phrase. The language sounds much lovelier from your lips than from those of Monsieur Dufourage. It always sounds beautiful to me. It reminds me of my mother. Oh? Did you... Jessie, where are you? Oh, I have to go. I'll visit you later, alright? And she hurried off to answer her best friend's summons. Okay. Girls, gather around if you please. Today I have arranged a special outing for your edification. We will be attending the British Museum of Natural History. Natural, does that mean plants? I hope not. There's nothing edifying about plants. It could be interesting to attend a museum of plants with people who know all about them and can tell their stories. You mean gardeners? Maybe we'll get to play in a garden. Quiet now, form up, let's go. Ooh. Ah! He's going to eat me! Right, I guess they did have dinosaur fossils at this point in history. Huh. Kind of forget about that. Like, it's not a modern thing, it's that. Well, I guess to an extent they've always been there, but we discovered them like hundreds of years ago. And we probably found them before we discovered them, if that makes any sense. It can't eat you, Lottie. It's not a real dinosaur. It's a former dinosaur. Its club membership expired, so it had to retire from being a dinosaur. It's dead! He's going to fall on me! I don't think it'll fall. It's really rather interesting. It's an amazing find. It's an amazing find. It's disturbing. It's a monster. It's marvelous. Jessie shivered and took Lottie's hand in hers. Come on, let's go find something to look at that isn't dead. I think that everything in this museum might be... I mean, it's not a zoo. I mean, look at the walls. The walls can't be dead. I mean, technically, if they're made of wood, then... They are rather pretty walls. You'll look at the exhibits with you, won't you, Sarah? Yes, of course. Are you coming, Lavina? No, I had to look at this one a while longer. I'll catch up with you two in a few minutes. Two? You're here, aren't you? Right. Sarah wondered if this was the first time that Lavina had ever preferred Ermengarde's company to Jessie's. Okay. Alright, you got a lot of holes to fill here. Unfortunately, we don't have knowledge and patience down simultaneously, so we can't do the tutoring combo. But just straight up reading a book is going to help with that a bit. Grace is the big one we gotta work on, though. I believe could use some help, too. And I'd love to practice dancing, but, like, our vigor's almost full. And we don't need the artistry, but we really need the grace, and there just really isn't a better way to do it. I mean, we could tea party. I guess you gotta practice dance. If I was in belief, writing the diary is not a bad way to go about it. So, this, I guess. Oh, I hope we don't need a lot of grace in the near future. Why do they use Roman numerals for 1 specifically, but not for any other number? It's weird. Okay, that is not what we were hoping to get out of the writing. Like, at all. We got 3 knowledge, 2 vigor, 6 patience, and 2 grace, but basically all that patience got wasted. Sara was awoken from her sleep by the sound of knocking. Ah, que c'est pas dit? It's alright, I'll get the door. Lottie? Sara! The young girl clung to Sara. I had a dream and the monster was going to eat me, and then I woke up and it was dark and I thought I saw something. Bones, there were bones in my room, monster bones! It's alright. Mariette, where are my slippers? The maid brought the fluffy white shoes for Sara to slip her feet into. I'll walk you back to your room and show you that it's safe. They went into the hallway together, 2 little girls in the dark. You're not bad, I woke up. Well, I want to sleep, but you want to sleep too, and if you're afraid you can't sleep, but if I can help you, then we both can. Lottie blinked her eyes a few times but said nothing. There we are, see? No bones, just a tree's shadow. Right. She paused at the door. Sara, Mama. I didn't really think there were bones in my room. I mean, I thought it, but I didn't really believe it. It was true. I knew that it wasn't. I just wanted to feel better. I'm sorry. Sara nodded slowly. Sometimes when you pretend things, even if you know behind the doors in your mind that they're not quite real, they still feel as if they were. It isn't wrong to believe in what you pretend. Lottie smiled. I will pretend that I'm going to have good dreams. That is a very nice thing to pretend. I believe I will too. And with that, she returned to her bed. Okay, no one's expiring. Good. Honestly, getting a patience and sympathy down. Let's go for Mariette's. We have the 4 belief. No one else. I mean, I guess Jesse needs belief, but that's fine. The thing that I dislike about going for the belief, though, is like, what are we getting next turn, right? Whereas if we go for, well, and I guess we could be targeting belief and grace. That should be fine. Because, yeah, I think of all of them, we're kind of falling behind in Mariette's events, I think. Come and see, come and see. I just hope we don't get in the situation where we've got multiple events expiring on the same week, because then I'll be sad. Ah, mademoiselle, you do not need to talk at me. It is a promise I will follow. Her hand still held in Sarah's, Mariette stepped into the classroom. I'm very sorry. I was too excited. That is quite all right, then. Now what is it that you wish to show me? Well, as it happens, it is more what I wished for you to show me. Miss Minchin keeps a globe in the schoolroom. I was hoping that you could show me where in France you were born. Ah, if it pleases you, mademoiselle. I do not think it will make much impact for you, though. The distance between one city and another compared to the world, it is not so much. Dutifully, she turned the globe to bring France into view. Somewhere near here, I believe, would be Le Manger. Sara followed Mariette's finger, then smiled to herself. You were right. It does not tell me anything more than I already knew. Could you show me where you lived in India? Here, I think, or somewhere nearby. It's hard to be sure, but this is where the ship took us. Sara tilted her head and considered Mariette curiously. You are very different from an Indian servant. My ayah was always kind to me, but she would never tell me if I were doing something wrong or making a mistake. Even if I asked for her opinion, she would always say that I was right. It was very confusing sometimes, until I learned to ask my papa when I needed to know something. Your papa wrote to you that you were a very clever and curious child, was eager to learn and would appreciate having the reasons explained to you. Yes, that is just so. It was another sign of how much her papa had considered her needs and well-being, and it made Sara feel warm to think it. Every time Mariette speaks to me, it is a gift from my papa. I do miss my Aya sometimes. And though their servants are my home, they were always a part of my life, even the ones that worked directly for my papa, and did not speak to me. They were familiar. I wish that I could see them again. All of my life, I suppose my life hasn't really been that long, has it? But for all my life, I always knew that I would have to go away like other children did. The climate of India is very bad for British children, so we must return to England and go to school. That is what everyone says. I wonder, is the climate of England very bad for Indian children also? Perhaps that is why none of them traveled with us here. I think that's more of just sort of a class issue. Though actually, like, and granted, I'm not sure if it was big in this time period, but I certainly think at a certain point in the colonization of India by the British, there was a time where it wasn't uncommon for, I think especially like more upper class Indians to send their children to Britain for education. Like, I think Gandhi actually is an example of that. I think he was educated in Britain, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that necessarily. But Victorian era might be a bit before that starts to become more commonplace, perhaps. Perhaps that is so. If you say the climate is very different, then it could be very difficult to adjust. However, mademoiselle, it is also very possible that they do not wish to travel so far from home and families that they love. Oh, yes. I didn't think of that. I don't wish to leave either if I had the choice. I'd rather be at home with my papa. It is very difficult to leave behind all that you have known and travel to a foreign land. But this is a foreign land to you. Wasn't it difficult to leave your family and your home in France? Mariette's smile was enigmatic. Who can say? Perhaps it is for the best, in the best of all possible worlds. Mademoiselle, hold out your arms like so, if you please. Sara extended her arms, letting them drift into ballet second position. Now over your head, so I can see the fabric stretch. Mariette was making the final adjustments to Sara's new pink dancing frock, after pointing out that Sara's change in height meant her old ones no longer fit just so. Ah, touch just there. Take it off again, and if you please, and I'll have it done before your next lesson. Sara wriggled free of the soft fabric and handed it over. It's such a beautiful color, and the skirt is so light. Dancing in that, I shall feel like a pink butterfly floating on the breeze, or a fairy princess with wings like rose petals. Roses? That is what it needs, a wreath of roses for your head. I will find some buds at the florist's. The mental picture of herself decked out in pink dancing frock with a crown of flowers was so delightful that Sara laughed out loud. Sometimes life is so beautiful. I wonder if I have pretended it into being. Mademoiselle does have a very good imagination. No, it is the magic. The magic shapes our lives and makes everything wonderful. Sara's heart was lighter than a feather. Okay, belief is at 0. So yeah, this is going to be belief and grace week. Mostly belief, so I think we do probably triple red in diary and then double tea party. As if we were very studious Republicans circa 2010. Yes. Let's just hope we don't get sympathy from the tea parties, but... hold on. No, dance is the better way to get grace. Right, there we go. And tea party's not bad, but the other stats would be a waste. Granted, same applies for dance, but at the very least, in dance, we're more likely to get grace, and the best case scenario is more grace. Okay. I swear, I don't think we've used artistry at all yet. It's starting to annoy me quite a bit. 1 knowledge, 3 artistry, 1 vigor, 1 patience, 3 grace, 4 sympathy, and 5 belief. Good week for belief. Sara's rooms at Miss Minchin's seminar were not like the rooms of ordinary pupils, who were meant to be satisfied with simple necessities. The bare necessities, if you will. There were pictures and books and curious things from India. There was a sofa and the low soft chair. Emily sat in a chair of her own with the air of a presiding goddess. And there was always a glowing fire and a polished grate. Because the room was such a nice, bright, pretty place, the little scullery maid known as Becky liked to save it until the end of her afternoon's work. If luck was with her, she could snatch a few minutes to sit alone in the soft chair and look around, thinking about the wonderful good fortune of the child who owned such surroundings. On this afternoon, when she had sat down, the sensation of relief to her short, aching legs had been so wonderful and delightful that it had seemed to soothe her whole body, and the glow of warmth and comfort from the fire had crept over her like a spell. Her hard-working young body was tired past the limits of endurance. As she looked at the red coals, a tired, slow smile stole over her smudged face. Her head nodded forward without her being aware of it, and her eyelids drooped. Thus it was that, when Sara returned to her rooms, her mind full of song and dance, she found an empty coal box on her floor, and a maid so deeply asleep that she might have been an enchanted princess. Oh, that poor thing. Becky looked nothing like any illustration of Sleeping Beauty. Her gown was stained, her face smeared with soot, and her poor little handkerchief, hung half off her head. Her face beneath the dirt was a plain one. Maybe kerchief is just actually a word. Maybe that's the name of the little thing that maids wear. She looked only like an ugly, stunted, worn-out little scullery drudge. But Sara was not cross to find such a figure in her own favorite chair. The ill-used heroine of the story. Now at last I can talk to her when she wakes. She crept closer to the chair, walking quietly on raised feet, and stood there looking at her. I wish she'd waken herself. I don't just awaken her, but Miss Minchin will be cross if she finds out. I'll just wait a few minutes. She took a seat on the edge of the table and sat swinging her slim legs. If Miss Minchin came looking for Becky, she was sure to be scolded. But she is so tired, so tired. At that moment, Sara's indecision was interrupted by a popping sound from the fire. A piece of flaming coal had broken and shifted. Becky did not realize at first that she had fallen asleep. She only remembered sitting down for a moment and the gentle glow. Now here she found herself, staring in wild alarm at the wonderful people who sat perched quite near her like a fairy. Becky sprang to her feet, clutching her kerchief to set it right. Okay, voice. Maybe like a Cockney accent? I'm not sure if I can do female Cockney, though. What is like? It's like, hey, governor. Oh, miss. Oh, okay, I guess that'll kind of inform me. Because she actually talks in dialogue, okay. Oh, miss, I ask your pardon, miss. Oh, I do, miss. Sara put her dainty feet on the ground and stood. Don't be frightened. It doesn't matter the least bit. I didn't do it, miss. It was a warm fire, and me being so tired, it wasn't impertinence. Sara broke into a friendly little laugh. You were tired. You could not help it. You're not really awake yet. Ain't you angry, miss? Ain't you gonna tell the missus? No, of course not. Oh, no, I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have touched your things, miss. Sara shook her head. Why, we are just the same. I'm only a little girl like you. It's just an accident that I'm not you and you are not me. This game isn't secretly an adaptation of the, what was it called? The Prince and the Pauper? No, we look too different. An accident, miss! Have you done your work? Dare you stay a few minutes? Yeah, miss. Me? If your bedrooms are finished, perhaps you might stay a tiny while? I thought perhaps you might like a piece of cake. Cake, me? Yes, of course. The next 10 minutes seemed to Becky like a sort of fever dream. The show people opened a cupboard and produced a thick slice of cake all for her, and actually seemed enthusiastic about watching Becky eat it. In between bites, Sarah managed to get answers to a few questions. A few weeks ago, you were watching me through the area railing, weren't you? Yes, miss, Once I saw a princess was standing in the street with the crowd outside, coming to garden washing the swells didn't go into in the opera, and there was one everyone stared at the most. They say to each other that's the princess. She was a glowed-up young woman, lady, but she was pink and lace over, and pretty flowers, and as a pretty anything. That's what you look like, miss, that day. You look like her. I've often thought that I should like to be a princess. I wonder what it feels like. I believe I will begin pretending I am one. Ain't you already? From elsewhere in the school, there was the sound of a door slamming. Oh, miss, I've got to go. I got to go. Come back someday, when you have more time, and I can finish that story you were listening to. I was putting new bits to it in my head. Oh, miss, if you do that, I won't mind how heavy the coal box was, or what cook done to me, if I might have to think of that. She bobbed an awkward little curtsy, grabbing her kerchief, when it slipped again, and then hurried from the room. We got Becky. Yeah. Okay, anyone expiring? No. Okay, I mean, obviously Jesse's gonna... 6 artistry, 5 grace, 5 belief, and 3 vigor. That's pretty good for kind of lowering things down. I am concerned that maybe Lottie or Ermengarde might be on the chopping block next for an event we might miss. Though Jesse's doesn't touch patience or sympathy, so we should still be fine. Becky would probably explore at some point, but it's no rush. Artistry. Oh, finally artistry, jeez. Grace, belief, and vigor. It looks like artistry and vigor are finally actually starting to come into play. That's good. Patience, sympathy. Okay. Well, hold on. Might it be better to go for Lottie first? 5 patience, 5 sympathy. That we can start building that up a bit. Well, I also wouldn't mind... Well, we don't really have anything that uses knowledge right now. Let's go patience, sympathy first. Because we got a lot of sympathy that needs to be utilized right now, so it makes sense to spend some of it immediately. Sarah, Mama, can you tell me more about your mama? What was she like? Oh. Sarah set her cup down. I never met her, not really, so I only know what my papa and his friends have told me. You never met her? No, she died when I was born. Do you remember your mother? A little bit, but not very much. I'm afraid I'll forget. You must have been very young. No one expects you to remember everything perfectly. Isn't it bad if all I have is a little and I lose it? You don't have to remember it all yourself. You can ask other people who knew your mother to tell you about her. Sarah had a faraway little smile on her face, the sort that she developed sometimes when she was supposing a story. My mother was from France. She had long dark hair and a sparkling laugh. That is what my papa said first caught his attention. I don't think that I have a sparkling laugh. I believe I am more like my papa that way. I should like to hear someone else sparkle. Do I have a sparkle laugh? I don't know. What does it sound like when you laugh?
Lottie's eyes swept back and forth, and her little forehead wrinkled.
I can laugh with you looking at me. Well, maybe I will hear it someday, when I am not looking. Tell me more. Was your mama beautiful and perfect? I don't think any person is perfect, but everyone says she was beautiful and calm and kind.
Lottie fidgeted in her seat. She scooped up one of the little sugared biscuits and popped it into her mouth, all in one go. That required a good minute of chewing before she could speak again.
Do you ever think about if you'll be like your mama when you grow up? Not very often, no.
In truth, while Sarah was certainly aware that she had once had a mother, and her natural curiosity had brought about a few questions and answers, it was not a matter that greatly occupied her thoughts. Never having known her, Sarah had never had reason to miss her. Her absence was not a cause of sadness or a reflection. It was nothing like the pain of being separated from her beloved papa.
I suppose that I must become like her in some ways, as children do. But she died when she became a mama. She died. Well, then I am already different because I am already Emily's mother and yours as well.
Reminded of her duties, Sarah fetched a handkerchief and brushed Aunt Lottie's face.
You're getting crumbs everywhere. You should be careful not to get your dress dirty. Your sister Emily is very good at keeping her clothes clean. You should look to her as your example. She is a model daughter. That's what Miss Minchin always calls people, a model or a show.
Lottie could not help but giggle. Okay. Sarah was sitting all curled up in the lovely soft chair by the fire, that same chair in which she had found Becky asleep not long ago. Her stockinged feet were folded up beneath her elbows on the chair arm, and her chin in her hands.
If I were a princess, a real princess, I could go among the populace in a grand coach and scatter largesse. Everyone who is tired and poor and hungry, I could make their lives better. That's what a princess ought to do. Even if I'm only a pretend princess, I can still invent little things to do for people.
She thought back to Becky's amazed delight at being warmed and fed.
It took so little to make a difference for her. She was just so happy as if it had been largesse. From now on, I'll pretend that to do things people like is scattering largesse. Then I can truly be a princess.
The thought swelled up inside her, making her head feel quite light. Before she knew it, Sarah was sitting up straight in her chair, her arms at her sides, and her feet hanging down, just like a princess on her throne.